We'll be starting off with a session of Battle Time, where we hear from two speakers with differing opinions. The topic for today is blockchain stagnation isn't coming anytime soon. Or is it? Please put your hands together for our moderator and our speakers. Our moderator today will be NAEEM ASLAAM, who's a former hedge trader at Bank of New York and a columnist at Forbes. Take it away, NAEEM.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So just a small background about myself. I have spent most of my life in a traditional finance industry, working as a hedge fund trader. Over the last few years, I've got involved into the blockchain space. I'm very enthusiastic about to start a PhD within this industry to concentrate on STOs and the settlements of these derivatives back in London. That's all. I'm going to hand over to a person who doesn't need too much of an introduction. But Bobby, please do tell a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Love Singapore. Great place. So my name is Bobby Lee. I've been in the Bitcoin crypto space since 2011 when started with mining Bitcoin. And I'm more well known for having been co-founder, starting BTC China, the very first Bitcoin exchange in China, which the BTCC exchange then later got acquired earlier this year. So I also sit on the board of the Bitcoin Foundation. So I'm a big proponent of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Thank you very much.
Over to you, Jay.
Okay, I'm the person who needs to explain who I am, maybe, in comparison with Bobby. It's an honor to be here in front of this amount of people, maybe 1,000 here, I don't know. I'm Jay HWANG, the co-founder and CEO of the FoundationX, the crypto fund and accelerator based on Seoul. Our company is based on the Seoul as a subsidiary of the FuturePlay, one of the well-known accelerator in South Korea, which I also co-founded. And I also, basically the serial entrepreneur. I co-founded lots of companies like IoT, wearable, and artificial intelligence. And the last one was named Fluenty, which generates some kind of natural language understanding technology that was acquired by the Samsung Electronics. That was the first time for Samsung to acquire the Korean startups ever. So based on this experience, we tried to make the startups doing the ICO in the right way. So far, we have incubated and invested over 22 projects, and our mother company have incubated over 100 different types of the tech startups so far. Yeah. So today, I'm going to share the experiences in the perspective of the investor and entrepreneur.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to start with the Q1 of 2018, and I'm going to relate something which mirrored what happened back in 2001 or back in late 90s. When any company had a .com written on their website, the earnings were going up, and when we see a huge rally in the stock market. The same thing happened in this particular year. So Q1 and Q2, any company which was saying that, look, we are going into a blockchain space, we are about to adopt this industry, there was a huge move for those companies, not because of the tax cuts or anything else, just because investors started betting on this idea that they are going to get involved with the blockchain space. The future is extremely bright. And in Q3, the word blockchain, when these earnings reports came, it literally vanished. Just to put some stats, to only 15% of the S&P 500 companies mentioned the word blockchain in their earnings report. So that shows the stagnation. And with that, what do you think, Bobby?
Well, I'm not surprised. I think, even the last few years, at one point I was naively thinking that, oh, blockchain is a solution for the future. But over the last few years, actually, I've done some of my own research and understanding, and I actually am quite pessimistic for blockchain. I told you earlier I'm a big fan of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, which is absolutely the case. But for blockchain, I just don't think blockchain technologies are any more useful for any other industry sectors. I think blockchain is great for cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, but I do not think blockchain can be properly applied to day-to-day activities or other real-life projects. So I'm pessimistic on blockchain technologies for the rest of the world.
Okay, I'm going to jump on it, but I'll let Jay too, please.
Yeah, I believe the blockchain, the future of the blockchain, as a positive, position. I think the stagnation this time is known by that is caused by the war between the Bitcoin Cash, SV and ABC. But I think there's a basic numbers of the reasons for the decline of the blockchain market. The first thing is a high frequency of the scams and fraud, right? So, like you said, only 4% of the ICO tokens have actually been listed on the exchange, and there's a lot of hidden, entities which was I found it when I jump into this area. There's a lots of investment brokerage and advisory services, marketing and PRs who is not revealed in the outside of the blockchain, but they took a lot of investment raised from the ICO project side. That's the another reason why we had a stagnation, and as we know all, the lack of the valuable products. There's no needs for buying coins for actual use. So in my perspective, the blockchain, the project can be categorized into 3 layers. The first layer is the technology. It's about the time per transaction and which kind of the languages they are used. And second thing is the governance. It's about the how to tokenize, how to incentivize the users by using their behaviors and times they consume. And the third layer, which lacks a lot, is the business layer, I believe. So a lot of the projects in the ICO scene doesn't have any experience of doing the business between the crypto side and also the physical side. So that's the main reason why.
Okay, so but let me just kind of break in there. The blockchain, the stagnation is happening because of the industry not adopting it, or is it because of the Bitcoin dropping? Because that's what I can see it, just because of the price has dropped, and then that's why it's no longer famous.
But certainly in the last 2-3 weeks, Bitcoin price has dropped by almost 50%. It's a huge drop for many people. That's factual. I think blockchain stagnation is
Isn't that a failure of a blockchain because Bitcoin is
I think we got this the causation is the opposite, meaning it's because blockchain is not living up to its hype. I think ICO tokens are crashing in price, which is bringing down the broader market for crypto. So it's not that the prices are coming down, that's why blockchain will fail. That is not the case. I think blockchain is still very successful for Bitcoin itself. But blockchain for real world activity, real world projects and business models, I don't think that works. I think businesses should continue to run on databases. My question for you is blockchain, in your mind, is the word blockchain different and better than a database? So intellectually, we have to be honest with ourselves. If the 2 words mean the same thing, then let's just use the same word. But to you, does it mean differently?
Yeah. Blockchain is much better than existing
how so?
The database.
What's the essence of blockchain?
In many aspects. Like one aspect I saw is that's transparent.
Transparency.
Yeah, transparency. And actually, a lot of guys are thinking the future of blockchain by, imaging like a blockchain can override all the things happening in the real world.
Yeah.
But I don't think so.
But let me ask you, for transparency, do you mean that the information in the blockchain is more truthful and more accurate and more correct than the data information in the traditional database? Do you believe that?
But in some areas, that's beneficial things for them. But in some areas, they don't.
So what areas would the blockchain information be more transparent and more truthful?
I think, I would like to say that's two examples, like very tiny little payment or the big payment.
Say
which
again?
the little payment or big payment,
But that's blockchain being used for cryptocurrency, which I agree with. I'm talking about non-cryptocurrency applications of blockchain. Are there examples where blockchain can actually solve a real problem that's not cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I believe the blockchain technology can solve the real problem.
Give me an example.
Yeah, so
Give me an
Ports of
example where-
Netherlands are using that.
Huh?
Netherlands ports are using supply chain, but there are so many different applications out there which are using the real cases. But I would concur with you that yes, there hasn't been a massive adoption on the space, but governments have started to do it, to implement to a certain extent. No?
So
let's talk about a concrete example. What real-world example is there where the information in the blockchain is more reliable and more truthful than if it were in a database?
So in the perspective of the entrepreneur, I think the blockchain can be the tools for startups to compete with the big companies like Google and Apple.
You're not being very specific.
But that's the features that can utilize. For instance, we always thinking the decentralized application, like a fully decentralized application, will be accessible soon or sooner, but I don't think so. I think these applications that utilizing the decentralization technology behind will be happening sooner. And that's very useful things for the novice users and accessible to everyone who doesn't know about the blockchain. So I think there will be a couple of applications utilizing blockchain behind will be installed our smartphone sooner. Yeah.
But you're literally waving your hand as you speak.
Pardon?
You're waving your hand. You're not giving me a specific. Like what I'm asking you, that you earlier told me that blockchain is better than a database because information in the blockchain is more truthful, more transparent, more accurate.
Yeah.
So what information have you seen that's been put in the blockchain that can give the real world more accurate, truthful, and transparent information? Aside from cryptocurrency.
Yeah, like I told you, the big payment.
Aside from cryptocurrency.
Like, just assume that we are building some kind of the ship, which is so expensive. So
building what?
Building ship.
Ships.
Yeah, ships.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's so expensive. So a lot of venture capitals are participating, building up those kind of the ships by utilizing the centralized bank, and bank take care of a lot of transparency, and they got a lot of commission for that. So by using the blockchain technology, we can separate it.
All right. You're saying to track payments, using blockchain to track payments for payments within the shipping industry, building of a ship?
No, I think, Bobby, I think that the actual use of a blockchain is to improve the efficiency in the system. Use the AI element and the machine learning to automate the process. That is the actual application of a blockchain. Yes, transparency is something. No, there's no nodding on it. There's no nodding on it. There's no. AI is a buzzword, and so is the blockchain is as good as the sex. Both of them, they exist, but there's no nod on it because the actual application of a blockchain is, I can tell you, working in the central banks, there are 3 different departments: front office, middle office, back office. All the process can easily be done by using a blockchain.
I disagree.
Okay, tell me, please.
Well, you tell me. If the burden is on you to prove or to explain to me what specifically that the blockchain can provide for the central bank.
If there is a system in place where we can trust that whatever is put into from the back office to the middle office, it reduces the reconciliations for me. It reduces all the corporate actions for me that I have within for that fund.
I disagree completely. For example, let's say SWIFT transfer, the SWIFT wire transfer network that we're all familiar with. The information that goes in
SWIFT, because what about LIBOR? The entire LIBOR scandal could easily be dismantled by applying blockchain technology.
I disagree.
Why? Because when banks are using it, every bank has their own motive to drive the price in their own favor.
So let's use that example, LIBOR. I've never thought of this example, but since you brought it up, I'll challenge you on that. So if the LIBOR system where banks set the rates, you're saying that information, if it were not be put into a consortium database, if it were put into a consortium blockchain, it would make the LIBOR data more accurate. That's what you're saying.
It would improve the transparency of the system.
So there's no manipulation.
To an extent.
I disagree completely. Here's why. In the end, it's still what they call a old man's club, old boys club. In the end, it still comes down to who's allowed access to record the LIBOR information into this blockchain.
Okay,
if that's a permissioned blockchain where only 7 people or 13 people are allowed to put their data into that LIBOR blockchain, then it's still an old boys club. It comes down to those 13 people. They can gang up and manipulate the system. If 7 of the 13 get together and say, let's push LIBOR up, then the 7 people have the majority and they can push the LIBOR rates up, or they can push it down likewise. So anything that's permissioned blockchain is just a database. Nothing wrong with permissioned database, but that will be the same thing as what's happened over the last few years with LIBOR.
When you are collecting prices in any asset, whether it's a commodity, whether it's an option or anything, if you decentralize them in altogether and then you use them, you have the probabilities are less. The odds are not stacked.
Agreed.
That's what I am
saying.
True
decentralization means that anyone is allowed to put information in there and to verify information in there. So that means the data has to be publicly verifiable. So a LIBOR data point is not publicly verifiable, because if anyone can go in and take a vote or make a recommendation, we're talking about anyone. A homeless person, we're talking about a retail clerk, we're talking about someone who's at home babysitting their kids can go in and put in data point for LIBOR. Then that's not going to be
Babysitter would
reliable.
never do the LIBOR, but yeah, for the asset classes, for a lot of banks, if you decentralize that process, that can happen. But again, another use cases, and then Jay, I wanted to bring you in, another use case is the trade finance. By using a blockchain, you increases the efficiency of it.
I disagree. How? Trade finance, how?
What is the process of a trade finance in your view?
Well, these are all private contracts and private discussions between banks and vendors and payments.
What exactly it involves for me to explain that to you? How does the trade process?
You have to explain how the process works today. I think with blockchain, it doesn't improve that process at all.
How? Okay. So Jay.
So the burden's on you to explain how it can improve.
I would. Okay.
Let's see what happens later.
Right.
So
if you think the blockchain can make you fly, the burden's on you to show me that you can fly with blockchain. I just don't think so.
Look. Let's take a very simple example. If I wanted to borrow money off you, I will have to go to a different escrow to do that. When you're involved with a different escrow, then there's a lot of paperwork, and then there's a credibility of everything, right? But when you adopt an automated function into this process, you can just exchange the contract with me, and then the contract itself is good enough for me to relieve the other person. That's the use of the blockchain. Agreed or not?
Are you talking about a payment, like where I give you some money on the blockchain using cryptocurrency, or are you talking
I'm talking about eliminating all the paperwork at the same time.
I think in the perspective of the engineer, the blockchain is just decentralized ledger. That's another layer of security of the internet. And in the perspective of the designer or entrepreneur, that's something that let us compete with the big companies. We can utilize the tools to compete with. I think that's the main point in the perspective of the entrepreneur and startup scene.
So since we're here in front of an audience, I really want to bring this point home for the audience to really challenge your critical thinking on this, because I've been thinking about it myself. I would love nothing more than a world where blockchain can solve all problems. However, over the last 2 years, I've done some deep critical thinking about this, and I've come to the conclusion it cannot. And the reason is that for you, where you said decentralized ledger, that's a buzzword, decentralized ledger. But can it really solve a non-cryptocurrency problem? I argue it cannot. So an example, recently in the US, there's been an outbreak of E. coli bacteria on lettuce, vegetable lettuce. So in romaine lettuce in salads, they say, oh, don't eat it because it could come from a contaminated farm, a contaminated source. Do you understand what I'm saying? So can the supply chain tracking of the lettuce, where it's grown, how it got shipped, to what city, to what supermarket, to what restaurant, can that be on the blockchain, cannot solve the problem of deciding whether it's contaminated or not? That's a common use case. And I argue it cannot, because if the decentralized blockchain can give more truthful information about the lettuce, then we could avoid the lettuce. But how? But that's not possible.
Yeah.
In the end, you still have to trust the farmer, the truck driver, the supermarket retailer, the person bringing the lettuce, that they're going to
Bobby, I think what you're saying is a blockchain is a magic bullet. It isn't. But by putting on a blockchain, to an extent, the supply chain, some of the people who can manipulate things, we are reducing that. It's not the answer to everything.
But it's a database can do the same thing. If these people...
No, not the database, because database can well, okay, you can lock certain information,
Sure.
but with this one, a lot of people wouldn't have that capability to do that, what they can.
I disagree. If you think about it, who gets to put the information into the blockchain? If that permission is granted to only special people, like the special truck driver or the special farmer, right? That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
So that is not publicly verifiable information.
Yeah.
If the farmer is corrupt, if the truck driver is corrupt, they can still commit evil and put in misinformation into the blockchain.
Yeah. So basically,
Am I right?
Yeah.
Then who are you trusting? You see the information in the blockchain says this lettuce comes from this farm in Arizona.
But right now you don't
you're
have
still
any
trusting.
information. Right now you don't have any
so,
information.
So the solution is having a database. The solution is not saying that the blockchain will solve the problem. The solution is we should do something about it, which is to have a supply chain database so that farmers, truck drivers, supermarkets, and restaurant managers and waiters can go in and attest to some information.
Yeah.
That's a solution. But that is not a blockchain solution. It's a database solution.
So, I believe that it will solve a lot of real problems, but I would like to say, solving problem is not important. Let's say
it's not important.
Yeah. Let's say.
Wait.
In my perspective,
solving problems is not important.
No. Solving
Man,
problem
stop
is
he didn't mean that. Bobby, he didn't mean that. Just stop putting him in the
in my
spot
opinion,
like
so
that. No, he didn't. He didn't
Yeah.
mean that.
What did you mean?
He didn't mean that. Come on,
I got
cut him some slack.
I got a
He didn't mean
doctorate degree in the human-computer interaction. So in that area, we always said that these technologies like a smartphone, multi-touch, and the smartwatch isn't the technology that the user insists that we need that. That's kind of the push technology. So a lot of the big movement people or the company or institutes try to push that technology into the real world, and the novice users and the just customers get into or used to experience that. Then they need their needs. They understand their needs. I think the blockchain is a similar thing. So without this smartwatch, I don't need this. But after experiencing the smartwatch, I cannot imagine that without the smartwatch, because I lost a lot of incoming calls without it, right?
I agree.
So I think, so I'm talking about the intention. I'm talking about the intention of the entrepreneur. So that's a hypothesis. They could solve some problems in the real world. That's the assumption. That's the hypothesis of the entrepreneur. And we try to do our best on make it happen, to enable it happen.
Okay,
right?
I'm going to shift the conversation to the last point because we're coming to
All
the
right.
last few minutes. I'm bringing it back here on the spot about the use of currency in the blockchain, right? Central banks will never allow that. I know that you have a very different view on it, but it goes back to our earlier conversation. M0, M1, M2, and M3. For those of you who don't know what M0 is a currency issued by the institutional banks. M1 is bought by M0 is bought by M1, who are your institutions. So institutions buy money from central banks, and then they flush into the system. And that is all backed by a legal tender. In case of cryptocurrencies, the legal tender isn't great enough. So there is no legal tender, but the market size is quite big. So whether there would be a legal tender or whether there won't be legal tender, the market has accepted as a form of a currency anyway.
You have a question for me, or you want me to comment on something?
Okay, I've heard that before. I heard that before, you saying that in many different conferences. Okay, the question to you, again, is that, okay, there is no legal tender, and because of the lack of the legal tender, the market capitalization of the cryptocurrencies is going lower and lower. So that goes to your use cases.
I don't agree with the logic. I agree with that Bitcoin does not have legal tender status. But I don't agree that that's why Bitcoin prices are going down. I think Bitcoin prices are going down because we're in a free market. With all markets, there are booms and bust cycles due to human greed and fear. And with every Bitcoin cycle in the last 10 years, Bitcoin price has gone down 80% from the peak. And recently, it has gone down 80% from the peak. But it doesn't mean that there's no hope for Bitcoin. It's not a straight down to zero. Rather, I firmly believe that Bitcoin is the world's first digital asset class that is information-based ownership. I'll be giving a keynote speech about this tomorrow. You can come attend that. And I think that's revolutionary in that sense. But back to blockchain and digital currencies. Central banks, you said that central banks will never allow Bitcoin as a legal tender currency. It doesn't matter what central banks allow or disallow. In the end, people can do whatever they want with Bitcoin. The market decided that Bitcoin today is worth tens of billions of dollars. Yeah. People are conducting commerce all over the world, making payments with Bitcoin, which uses the blockchain technology to support. It's just like in a prison system, people use cigarettes as a form of money. Today, this world, this earth we live on today, people have already decided people are using Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as money. And that's a base case.
Jay, for you, the last few words?
Yeah, I want to mention the dot-com crash in 2001. You know, the value of the Amazon drops 98%
I'm
from the
so
all-time
sorry
high.
to interrupt you.
All right.
We love to hear from you all day. Unfortunately, time is up.
All right.
So.
Okay, look, thank you so much.
We're
still friends, and
So
I'll see you at the next
Sounds
conference,
good.
right?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's do it inside the backstage together. Thank you.
Thank you again to NAEEM, Bobby, and Jake.